This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How are you doing on this beautiful Tuesday? It is the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. I hope you're having a great Tuesday, getting the week going. It's SEC Championship week. And we're here to bring it all to you right here on BamaCentral.com. You can follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or on Amazon at The Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. You can find us at BamaCentral.com, at Bama Central on the X Machine, at BamaCentral SI on Instagram, and at Alabama Crimson Tide on Sports Illustrated for all your social media platforms on Facebook. Yep. You can find me at Joe Gaither 6 and join the show. You send me your comments, questions, queries, and complaints right there to Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube. What are we going to do today? Well, let me tell you what we're going to do over the next day and a half. Okay, I'm going to do a show today. We're going to talk about Nick Saban and Greg Byrne. We're going to talk football primarily, as several Alabama players are on the move in the NFL world as well. So we're going to stick pretty much there in this portion of the show today. Tomorrow, you're going to hear my conversation with head coach Wimp Sanderson. I'm going to call Coach Sanderson a little bit later today, and we're going to talk about the SEC tournament, about his time in the tournament, about this team, about really all things SEC tournament, as he is Mr. SEC tournament. So that's what it's going to be over the next 2 shows or so. Let's get right into it with football. And first and foremost, let's kind of apologize, because it might go several different ways. Because Nick Saban and Greg Byrne spent some time up with Senator Ted Cruz at the NIL roundtable discussion, future of college athletics discussion today in Washington. You had Ted Cruz, you had Joe Manchin, you had Marsha Blackburn, you had lots of senators in and out of the chambers. But lots of our focus is going to be on Nick Saban and on Greg Byrne and their comments as they relate to Alabama. Look, there's a lot of things that I agree with Coach Nick Saban on. There's a few things that I don't agree with him on. Let's talk about the very most important thing that I took out of both men's testimonies in front of Congress today. It came from Greg Byrne. Greg Byrne essentially outlined, and if you haven't looked under the hood of the Alabama athletics accounting budget, you're about to see something. Alabama basically has 21 scholarship sports. And Greg Byrne outlined, if you don't have football and men's basketball, the other 19 scholarship sports run at a $40 million loss annually. Every year, the other 19 sports combined lose $40 million. That's gymnastics, that's softball that you love, that's baseball that you love, that's women's basketball, that's track and field, that's soccer. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Everything that's not men's football and men's basketball is losing money. And so that basically sets the table for the entire conversation, because really they want to get a handle, and Coach Nick Saban is advocating getting some federal legislation on NIL, getting some rules that apply to all 50 states. That way, there's some levity to the playing field. There's some parity across the country, but you don't have that at the moment. But you have to keep in mind that football is footing the bill. Football is basically covering everything. And so you have to understand, what is NIL? Where is it? What is it to give? Coach Saban often compares college football to the NFL. And he did so again today in front of Congress and talked about salary caps, this, that, and the other, and talked about revenue sharing, this, that, and the other. And I think that's all well and good. But right now, as it stands, we just outlined Alabama, $40 million loss with the 19 other sports. Okay, well, if you are removing football, or if you are removing some, look, you got to figure out where the onus is on NIL. Right now, the onus on NIL is on donors, it's on fans, it's on big money boosters, it's on corporations. It's not on the university. It's not on we're paying the players. You're employed, or you're employed by the university, or you have some sort of contract with the university. This is the issue that creates the complication, because NIL is not coming from the university. It's coming from outside entities. It's coming from it's coming from you and me. It's coming from fans. If you're subscribed to Yay Alabama, it's coming from you. But because it's coming from outside entities, it's not really something that's able to be controlled, and thus you don't have the levity, the fair playing field across the board. What do you want to do? Do you want to curb NIL and basically create rules and guidelines for NIL and basically say, oh, well, you can't make X amount of dollars from this booster or that corporation? Dr. Pepper, you can't pay Caleb Williams X amount of dollars or Bryce Young X amount of dollars to be in your Dr. Pepper commercials. You can't control that. That's the problem. Look, Coach Saban talks about it being salary cap and being, we need to get a cap on it, get a control on it. We need to get some written contracts in here. But NIL, as it stands today, is much more like an NFL, the endorsements. Russell Wilson with his Subway contract. The Broncos couldn't stop Russell Wilson from being with Subway. Now his play definitely decreased and got himself cut and released from the Broncos, and now he's with the Steelers. So there are other consequences that come into play if you're going heavily on endorsements. Maybe your play on the field doesn't live up to the value that you're trying to provide these companies, but you cannot keep Russell Wilson from doing the Subway ad, from doing Gatorade, from doing whoever, from doing Beats by Dre. You can't keep him from doing that. It's not really in your purview. And thus, Russell Wilson, he can make his $38 million that he made from the Broncos last year in one hand. And yeah, it fits under the salary cap. Denver can only pay him X amount of dollars. And then he can go make another 30, 40, 200, whatever, name whatever your number you want to in your brain, if he wants to hustle that hard off the field. So the issue with NIL, Nick Saban has always said, I don't have a problem with NIL. I don't have a problem with true NIL. They highlighted Bryce Young today. They highlighted everything that Bryce Young added to himself as the starting quarterback, as the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback at the University of Alabama. I don't have a problem with true NIL. The guys who come in here are, make a name for themselves, and then they go do the Dr. Pepper ads. They go do the Tuscaloosa Toyota ads. They're out there. You see the name, image, and likeness. Wilkin Formby is on the Taco Casa commercials. It is very obvious and evident. What he's not for, and what a lot of people have issues with, is the pay for play. But there's a huge gray area, because the pay for play, you have to decide what is name, image, likeness. What is value? You look at a couple of recruits that Alabama has in the 2025 class. You got Derek Smith on Monday, yesterday, 4-star receiver out of Southside Selma. Derek Smith, Alabama wants to get him into the program because he's a valuable player, because he's a valuable athlete. Now, will he be a valuable athlete and produce on the field for 1,000-yard receiving seasons? No one knows. We don't know if he's going to make one catch or 100 some catches. No, we don't know. But he is already a valuable prospect, a valuable commodity as a high school player. So how do you decide, we want to influence Derek Smith to come to Tuscaloosa and play his 2 to 3 to 4 years at the University of Alabama? How do you influence him without calling it name, image, likeness? You're basically paying for his name, image, and likeness as a high school player. So you have different sides viewing and defining name, image, and likeness in different ways. But really, Coach Saban just wants to have some sort of guardrails. And I definitely support that. I think that there should be some rules that basically make all 50 states. Look, I don't have a problem with the pay for play. I really don't. And you might, and that's okay. You can jump in and tell me on the comments at Joe Gaither 6 on all the social media platforms there. And that's A-okay. That's what sports and opinions are all about. The problem becomes when Missouri can, the state of Missouri can pay high school athletes when they commit to state schools, but they cannot pay high school athletes when they commit to other schools. You saw that with a prominent recruit in Missouri, was considering Oklahoma, decided to commits to Missouri. He opens up his NIL opportunities, and boom, he's making money as a high school player. And that's not fair to me. Look, I am all about the players maximizing their value. Look at the value of these athletes. Look at the finite time that they have to maximize their value. Look, I can speak here, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. If God doesn't strike me down with any medical calamities, I'll be able to speak and do shows like this until the day I die. But my athleticism ran out when I was a junior in high school. These guys and these ladies, you've got finite athletic time period. You can go from 18, some of them earlier, but 18 to 35 is your window right there. You got to make your money right there and set yourself up. Don't you look, I know you've all been to the grocery store. I know you've all been to the gas station, and I don't really want to debate politics with you, but you've seen the economic hardships across the country. Don't you look at yourself in the mirror and say, if I have Johnny 5-star or Sally 5-star, I'm going to make sure that Johnny 5-star is going to a place where his NIL is going to be relatively good, or Sally 5-star is going to have a good deal, a relatively good NIL deal. You have finite time to capitalize on this sort of things. So really it all comes down to who is footing the bill. The universities don't want to foot the bill, but they also want control over the people who are paying for it, the boosters, the collectives. And I think that there's definitely room to get some sort of control over the boosters and the collectives. I think that when you're getting into true NIL, hey, I'm signing this contract with Logan's Roadhouse and I'm going to be your spokesperson and tell you how great the roles are over at Logan's Roadhouse. Bryce Young had the Logan's deal. He took the lineman over there, once a week or so. You can't stop that sort of stuff. I think that bag, that ball is out of the bag. That cat is out of the bag. Basically, the toothpaste is out of the tube on that sort of thing. But what you can control is potentially leveling some of the playing field when it comes to straight up pay for play. I think you're still going to have pay for play, and I'm not necessarily against that. The issue is, if you don't have pay for play, well, you've got to thus create some sort of an employment with the athletes, with the players, with the football. Look. Football players, they are the lifeblood of the athletic facility. They're absolutely worth money because of exactly what they're doing for softball right now, what they've done for baseball. You look at the spring sports, men's golf. We love you, men's golf, but you're not making money. So there is value to these players. Do you want it to be paid by the boosters and fans and collectives, or do you want it to be paid by the universities? And the universities are talking about, revenue sharing. Coach Saban talked about, maybe not employment today, but revenue sharing. And I think that's really a good starting place, a really good middle ground here. You look at the revenue sharing, you see what Alabama gets from the college football playoff. You see the SEC and their revenue check from the college football playoff and from ESPN. The issue becomes the negotiation. How much of the pie is fair? 50-50, 60-40, 70-30? What's the fair price? Because still, going back to the original point, Greg Byrne, 19 athletic programs depend on football. Well, they're depending on football from the revenue that they're getting from the conference, from college football playoff, from ESPN. And so if you are to revenue share some of that with the football players, well, who are you getting rid of? Which athlete are you looking in the face and saying, you know what, we're not doing rowing anymore. Sorry, guys, your sport is cut. We're not doing soccer anymore. I know you went to the Final Four 2 years ago, but your sport is cut. Oh, sorry, women's basketball. Like, who are you cutting? Who are you looking in the face? Sorry, volleyball. You no longer have a job, volleyball, Rashinda Reed. Like, that is a horrific scenario to approach. And so you think about revenue sharing. It's like, that sounds like a great concept. But on the outset, the beginning, who's getting cut here? Which is why I think, honestly, you're not going to move into any sort of employment, and you're not going to get into any sort of revenue sharing. But what you are going to do, and your best hope, is to get some sort of federal legislation on NIL. If you want to pay all the high school players, if you want to do pay for play, hey, as soon as you sign your letter of intent in December, then you are eligible for benefits. I think that might be a way. But here's the biggest way to control things. The biggest and easiest way to control things and to not revert to the way it was, but to see some sort of calming in the landscape of college football. The biggest way to control things is to go back to the old transfer portal rules. Look, I love the transfer portal just for what it is. It allows athletes freedom. I am a pro athlete. Look, when I was a college student, I transferred from the University of Alabama to Chat State Community College to Shelton State Community College and back to the University of Alabama. And all that was well and good. And it was not a problem for me as just an academic student. Nobody, no hoops to jump through, no scholarships to transfer, anything like that. The biggest issue is the transfer portal, the year-to-year eligibility. If I can go from Alabama to Georgia right here in the spring window, if I can go to Alabama, from Alabama to Ohio State because, my coach changed, and another school wants to pay me $3 million. How hard, look, you can talk about loyalty all you want, and loyalty is absolutely something to be applauded. But how hard would it be for you to be loyal if the boss, let's say whatever institution you were in, the boss that you were hired on to work for, says, you know what, you work together for a year, the boss retires unexpectedly, and another company says, hey, we're going to give you $3 million to come across the street and work for our company because you proved yourself in the 1 year. I mean, look, it's hard to blame Caleb Downs. But if Caleb Downs had to sit out one season, if he had to sit out his sophomore year and thus then play his junior year at Ohio State, and look, this is not really personal for Caleb Downs. I'm just using him as an example. And look, I wish him all the best. I hope he has a good 2 seasons at Ohio State. I don't really have any ill will for the kid. But if you are making the young man sit out a year before getting onto the field, you think Caleb Downs is going to go to Ohio State and sit out a year? Look, you can talk about $3 million all you want, but he's going to sit out a whole year, lose a year's worth of game tape, lose a year worth of game repetitions just for the $3 million in his junior year. I think that's a hard balance to be dealing with. And thus, if you're Ohio State, you're not paying $3 million for Caleb Downs who has to sit out a year. You're not. You say, oh, well, you have to come here to Columbus, sit out a year, and then play your junior year. Well, your value for that 1 year is probably closer to 1.5, 1.2, $1.8 million, whatever the case may be. And so your value goes way down. And what do? You cut down on the tampering. And that's the biggest issue. You're not going to cut down on the pay for play. That's not really something that's going to, I think, be controlled very easily. But what you can control, or what you can get a hold of, is the tampering. Why would I get on the phone if I'm Iowa with Caden Proctor and say, oh, man, congratulations, keep your head up, we're here for you? Why would I get on the phone with him if he has to sit out for a year? I have to burn a scholarship year. We've just, Greg Byrne talked about how much they pay for every scholarship athlete, $93,000. $93,000 the university foots the bill for every scholarship athlete. So you're going to burn $93,000 for a kid who's not even eligible and pay him NIL money. I don't think that's really – I think that if you were to revert to the old transfer rules that said if I transfer – from one school to another school in Division I, I sit out for a single season. Look, you want to do that? You get upset at the coach. You don't like the environment. Your girlfriend breaks up with you, or you want to move home. This, that, and the other. You got a sick grandparent at home. Whatever the case may be, all these circumstances that you've seen the NCAA deal with over the last 5-6 years, giving waivers to this player and to that player, you just blanket everything. If I want to transfer from Division I school to Division I school, I have to sit out a year. It really stinks if that's the scenario, but I just have to sit out a year. Now, what you do is you keep the rules in place where it said, oh, if I graduate from the University of Alabama, if I graduate, I can transfer as a graduate transfer, and boom, 1 year, I'm good to go because you have fulfilled your obligation to that school. And look, I'm not going to sit here and pound the table and say, oh, they need to be student athletes. I'm not a fool. I know that it's not the emphasis is not so much on the student anymore, but if you graduate, you have fulfilled your obligation to that school. You fulfilled the scholarship offer that you were given, and thus you can move on to another school without having to sit out for a year. The other way, if you don't want to sit out a year, you got to go to junior college. You got to go to a lower division. You got to go to Division II. You got to go to 1AA. And then if you want to come back, and you can. So like, look, if this rule were in place for Caleb Downs, if you want to go to Ohio State, hey, man, no problem. But you got to go to Youngstown State first for a year if you want to keep playing, if you don't want to lose that year on the football field. I think if you were to address the transfer portal, you will get in control, a little more control of the name, image, and likeness, of the pay for play, and of the tampering. Because look, I don't see a whole lot of, I want to tamper with this player if I have to wait on him for 12 to 14 months. Now, you're still going to get the tampering. You'll still get tampering with graduate students. I'm sorry, your boy Trey Amos, he graduated from the University of Alabama. He's going to Ole Miss. This is his, second transfer? He went from Louisiana to Alabama, now to Ole Miss. He's been on the right path. He's done the right things to do. Look, you're still going to get some of that tampering at that place, at that level. I know that Jace McClellan kind of had a little bit of a offer or say from Ole Miss as well as a graduate transfer. Like, I think that once you graduate, you have done a lot of your duty. You have put in your time. You've shown your loyalty, and you've given that school enough of a fair chance that, hey, if I'm transferring out for a different opportunity, for an opportunity to start or whatever the case may be, I'm all for that player going ahead and playing. But I think if you control the transfer portal, then you will get the NIL and the pay for play under control a bit more. I think Greg Byrne basically kind of, without saying how not dangerous, but perilous. I think things are on thin ice in college athletics. You look at the 21 programs here at the Capstone, and we love them all. We cover them all right here on BamaCentral.com. You can read about them right there every day on BamaCentral.com. Make sure you don't miss Roll Call. We address all of the smaller sports in Roll Call each and every night, whenever they do anything that's newsworthy. But Greg Byrne basically says football and basketball support the other sports. If you were to make these football and basketball players employees or to revenue share with the NCAA tournament and or college football playoff, that's going to have a negative effect on the Olympic and non-revenue sports. And look, while I know that I know that softball only takes over the TV for the last couple of months of the season. I know that, gymnastics, you get a couple of events on the TV for a year. Like, these non-revenue sports are not the most popular, but like, these people, they're providing great opportunities. You're providing great opportunities for athletes who have put in a lot of work. And really, you are providing, honestly, I think that what you're doing is you're furthering education, and you're impacting athletes and human beings across many different avenues of life. And that's what Coach Saban really was getting into during his portion. He's getting out of it because he's lost his influence, or he feels like he's losing some of his influence, or maybe some of the passions or goals are not necessarily the same as what he used to have when he was coaching. I think that's perfectly fine. And I think that just happens. People want to lament and say, oh, the kids aren't any good these days. No, I don't think that they're good nor bad. I just think there's different. I think that the different times, the different circumstances have created a different set of priorities. And yes, some of those priorities do include getting as much money as you can as soon as possible. And while some people can argue whether that's good or bad, look, you got to learn those lessons sometime in life. You got to learn those lessons to deal with money at some times during life. And if you have only a finite amount of time to earn your money, you might need to make some of those decisions, make some of those hard choices in that fashion, even if it doesn't always line up with the long term. So look, Coach Saban was great today. Greg Byrne was great today. It was cool to see them in a different setting dealing with the Senators. I'm not really much on politics. I try to stay out of it because it makes me crazy. It makes me absolutely insane. And I hope that you didn't take away that I'm going one way or the other from this little period either. You guys can support Nick Saban. You can support name, image, and likeness, or you can support you can go back to the way it was. That's A-okay. But I'm just telling you, the train is down the track, and we'll see if we can at least slow it down a little bit, control it a little bit, so when it goes around the next curve, we don't lose several sports off the back end of the train. Let's talk about some NFL news before we get out of here for the day. I appreciate everybody watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. Everybody hanging out with us at Joe Gaither 6. We got a lot of you guys on the Twitter machine, and it's awesome to see. You can find me at Joe Gaither 6. You can find BamaCentral at BamaCentral on the X machine. All right, so let's get out of here with NFL news. I got 3 pieces of NFL news. One I should have got to yesterday that I didn't, that I cannot believe I forgot, and 2 that happened today. First things first, 2 things that happened today. Derrick Henry signed with the Baltimore Ravens. And buddy, let me tell you, I do not want to be tackling. I don't want to be playing defense against the Baltimore Ravens this year. No way. I don't want to be playing defense with that offense coming downhill right into your face. Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, oh my gosh, are going to be a terrifying tandem in the AFC North. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch next year. Derrick Henry gets 2 years, $16 million, so $8 million average annual value. It can get up to $20 million to make it a $10 million average annual value. You look at where that falls in the running back tandem. Look, I know you love Derrick Henry, and I do as well. Heisman Trophy winner, put on one of the greatest performances I've ever seen in my life down there in Lee County. But it just goes to show where he's seen in the NFL market. As yesterday, Josh Jacobs really has set the market for the running backs at $12 million average annual value with the Green Bay Packers. Now, 3 of those years are Green Bay Packer team options. So really the Packers came strong with one really good year for Josh Jacobs. And they basically said, hey, we'll revisit this on a year-to-year basis. And I think that's probably about as good as you can ask for from an NFL running back perspective. For Derrick Henry, 2 years, $16 million, could get up to 20 if he hits all his incentives. I think it's going to be a great, great thing for Derrick to be lining up in the backfield with Lamar Jackson because, oh my gosh, you're going to have to probably declare your defenses a lot more. You let Zay Flowers get down the side. Zay Flowers, Boston College young man, get down the sidelines. I think Baltimore, that's a scary, good addition. Look, they've had really tough running back luck, and we hope that Derrick Henry avoids any plague. You look at the running back luck, J.K. Dobbins hasn't been able to stay healthy. Now I think he's a free agent. Literally, Gus Edwards was always hurt. Almost everybody that they've had over the last couple of years paired up with Lamar Jackson has suffered some kind of injury. Maybe Derrick Henry is the answer. Big old tank bruiser that he is. Moving from the AFC South in the Tennessee Titans, he will play his next 2 seasons with the Baltimore Ravens. Secondly, NFL news today, Irv Smith Jr., tight end, Minnesota Vikings, is now a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. Irv Smith Jr. will slide right in behind Travis Kelce. He's going to be in that championship offense, and really, I guess he's going for Super Bowl ring number 3. I think this is a really nice fit for Irv Smith Jr. Look, he's been in Minnesota, where Kirk's been a fine player, a fine quarterback. He's a serviceable quarterback, but I think that Patrick Mahomes will utilize Irv Smith a bit more. And with Travis Kelce really taking the lion's share of the pass routes, Irv Smith, actually, no. Irv Smith was with Minnesota, and it was Cincinnati this last year. He spent 1 year with Cincinnati. That's where he's come from. So he's come from Cincinnati, and he's going to Kansas City. So if you are a Kansas City Chiefs fan, he's going to join the Chiefs. And lastly, I cannot believe I didn't mention this yesterday. What a fool. What a fool I am. Over the weekend, Mac Jones got traded. If you watch me for any length of time, if you heard me in my prior role at Tide 100.9, I was very, very vocal against Mac Jones just because of the overinflated sense of value the 2020 season gave him. And I think after 4 years, some of those takes are starting to get validated with the New England Patriots trading him to the Jacksonville Jaguars to serve as a backup quarterback. Going back home, that's great. Maybe Jacksonville, that hometown setting will maybe revitalize his career. But I think the NFL really showing you what they think of him as a whole. You may have thought that I was wrong, or may have thought that I was a hater over the last 4 years. But I am not an NFL decision maker, and no one was trading for Mac Jones to give him a starting quarterback opportunity, to give him a starting quarterback role. Now, look, if Trevor Lawrence gets hurt, hey, Mac, you've got a fresh chance to prove everybody. Look, because everybody who's on the other side of the Mac Jones conversation is right in their action, in their takes of, oh, the Patriots never supported him. Correct. They're absolutely correct. Oh, they hired Matt Patricia to be the offensive coordinator. You're right. And he's a dummy defensive coordinator. What are they doing? The Patriots didn't do right by Mac Jones, but I still feel validated, and I still feel like I will be correct that maybe Mac Jones was overrated by the Alabama football family based on the 2020 season. Now, was the 2020 season amazing? Absolutely it was. Arguably one of the best teams in college football ever, but I think that Mac Jones got to drive a great Ferrari of an offense with the Joe Moore winning offensive line, with the Doak Walker winning running back and Najee Harris, Heisman Trophy winning wide receiver. Oh, and Jalen Waddle for just a little bit of time at the beginning and at the end of the season. Pretty dang good offense that year. Now, Mac did great. He made the throws. He led the team, and they won the national championship. You'll never be able to take that away from Mac, and I'm never going to try. But I've always been kind of in the sandbagging Mac Jones side of things, just because I thought he was a bit overrated in comparison to our friends Tua Tagovailoa, Bryce Young, and Jalen Hurts. So Mike Jones gets traded. He goes to the Jaguars. He's going home. They gave up a 6th-round pick, I believe, and he's going to be sitting behind Trevor Lawrence. It might actually work out really good for Mac, honestly, because of their quarterback. Doug Peterson is still coaching over there in Jacksonville. He got Nick Foles paid a lot of money. He made Carson Wentz look like an MVP for half of a season. He has revitalized Trevor Lawrence's career. It might be the perfect fit to let Mac Jones learn from Peterson, learn from Doug Peterson, and maybe develop his career even further. Look, in a year or two, there might be a starting job open, and Mac Jones might get the call. We'll see. That's going to do it for our show today. Actually, before we get out of here, we'll address softball real quick. Softball had a difficult weekend at the plate over the Rhodes House, losing 2 out of 3 to the Florida Gators, but they did win last night. They won last night. Kayla Beaver got after it last night, and she through 7 shutout innings, and Alabama did win last night. They won 3-0 on Monday night, so they bounced back. They started SEC play 1-2. And look, it's the same issue that we've been talking about with softball over the last 3-4 years, really since Bailey Hempill moved on from the program. Where is the power hitting? Where is the consistency? Coach Patrick Murphy, let's pass the bat down. Let's do it, Coach Murphy. Let's do that. Let's pass the bat from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 and bring them in and score. That still seems to be the same issue with this softball team. Haven't really played great competition through the early part of the year, but now with Florida coming to town and showing you, look, there's still a lot of room to grow with this team. We'll have to keep following them, and you can follow them with our friends Katie Wyndham and Matthew Gibson and Edwin Stanton. They're all covering softball for us at BamaCentral.com. It's going to be a big week for basketball. I'm going to talk to Wim Sanderson. I'm going to talk to him later on this afternoon, and it will be our episode tomorrow, our Wednesday episode. We're going to put that out there on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. We'll put it up there on YouTube, at the Bama Central YouTube channel. It's going to be a lot of fun to talk with Coach Sanderson about winning the SEC tournament 5 times during his tenure. Mr. SEC tournament. And he didn't win it in Nashville. He won it on opponents' home floors. He won it up in Lexington against Kentucky. I believe he won it in Nashville on Vanderbilt's home floor as well. He won it on other teams' home floors, a much different era. I'm looking forward to talking to Coach Wim Sanderson and making that our Wednesday episode as we get ready for the SEC tournament. If you missed my SEC tournament, short little preview yesterday, it's on our episodes yesterday. You can see who I picked to win the tournament. Oh, maybe Alabama can prove me wrong. We'll see how that goes up there in Nashville later on in the week. We'll get up there for you at BamaCentral.com. Myself, Blake Byler, and Katie Wyndham will be covering the SEC tournament, and we'll do it all right there at BamaCentral.com. So I'm coming back to you tomorrow. You're following us at Joe Gaither 6 on all the social medias. You're following us at the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. You're subscribing, rating, and reviewing, and you're sending the show to a friend right there on your favorite podcast platform. We're getting out of here for the day, and we're coming back tomorrow with our friend Wim Sanderson, head coach for the winningest head coach in Alabama basketball history. He's going to be joining us tomorrow on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither 6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.